I'm Rob Pasick, and I'm a graduate of the University of Michigan from 1968, and it's a real pleasure to be here today to talk about a favorite topic of mine, emotional intelligence. I first became involved in the concept and development of emotional intelligence when I was a graduate assistant at Harvard to David McClellan. And Dr. McClellan was one of the foremost people in the development of this idea of competency-based learning. And we were seeking to find a way to predict who would succeed in a job and who would not. And emotional intelligence was a set of competencies that Dr. McClellan and his graduate students designed that have enabled people to figure out what is going to work in the workplace in terms of personality and relationships and what needs to be developed for success. So what I'd like to do today is talk to you about what is emotional intelligence, and then I'm going to share with you 10 of the best practices that I've found over the last 30 or so years that enable people to utilize and develop their emotional intelligence. So first of all, let's get going and talk about emotional intelligence being a set of competencies that enhance your ability to relate to others. The research has shown that it plays a key role in success in relationships at work, even more than intellectual intelligence. It's fine to be smart, but it's even better to be emotionally attuned and have good people skills if you want to succeed in a job. And this has been reinforced many times in the executive coaching that I do professionally. So what are the 4 competencies of emotional intelligence? Well, first of all, we have the idea that emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness, that it's a competence that without ability to be self-aware, one really has a very difficult time relating to other people. Based on this concept of self-awareness, which is an old idea that has been talked about from the Bible on through Shakespeare on to today, we go to the next competency, which has to do with managing oneself, managing one's emotions. And again, we see this as a really crucial side of being able to get along with people, to keep one's temper in control, to be able to monitor one's feelings and manage one's feelings. So once you understand yourself and you manage your emotion, then a higher level of emotional competence or social competence would be the concept of empathy. And this is something that we've talked a lot about recently, the importance of understanding how other people feel and gauging the feelings, the impact that you're having on other people when you are talking to them. And the final one is, if you have these 3, then we hope that the highest level of emotional competence is relationship management, which is basically getting along with people, which is a huge predictor of success in a key relationship such as marriage, in family, or in the workplace. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about each of these concepts and then go into the 10 best practices. So let's say if you want to assess yourself on how do I know myself well? Well, first of all, ask yourself some of these questions. Do I know how I feel? Do I know what motivates me? Do I understand my personality type? And if you have those questions answered, you could have a pretty good sense of how the basis, the foundation is for emotional intelligence. Then we go on some questions to ask yourself about how well do I manage my emotions and my actions? And to get at that, ask yourself questions like, can I control my emotions? Can I demonstrate self-control and discipline? Can I delay gratification? And sometimes I say ask yourself, but it's also important to ask other people, because sometimes we're not the best judge of ourselves. We really need to get feedback from other people, because we think maybe we're doing this well, but then we find out we're not doing it as well as we thought. Another question to ask yourself is, how do I manage and understand other people? Do I get other people? Do I know how others feel? Can I gauge how others feel when I'm talking to them? Do I understand the deeper emotions that people are experiencing, or are these kind of out of my scope of understanding? And then if you have those, you could ask yourself the last one, how well do I manage relationships? Can I get along with people on a one-to-one basis or on a team? Can I create rapport with people? Can I manage and lead people? Can I read a group? Can I manage conflict? Can I follow people effectively? These are all key indicators of whether you have strong emotional intelligence. And I will include later on, at the end of this presentation, some resources for you to actually take an online test about emotional intelligence. But let's move on now to the 10 best ideas of how to utilize and develop your own emotional intelligence. So, first of all, let's look at self-awareness. What are some of the best practices to create self-awareness? I think one of the basic ones, and one that we often neglect, is a practice of self-reflection. And by a practice, I mean something you do at a routine basis, something almost daily that you schedule. Maybe it's meditation or prayer. What I like to do myself is start the morning by reading something inspirational, meditating, and then writing in a journal. In the days that I do that, I feel much better and much more attuned with myself. Writing about your feelings, writing about difficult situations, understanding yourself through writing is very important. And hopefully, as University of Michigan grads, we've all learned how to write, so we could use that skill. Another is talking to others about your feelings and listening, really listening to their feedback. And so I enjoy having people talk to me. I also think it's important to participate in small groups or in dialogues. You could do this in your church or in your workplace sometimes, where you just have an opportunity to mentor or share with other people your feelings. I also think that setting goals is a very important part of self-awareness, that if you are intentional in your behavior, if you know where you want to go, and you set goals in that direction, you're going to be much more self-aware. And I go through a lot of practice myself. I've been setting goals since I was in college, and I continue to do that, and I find it's a very good way to clarify my values and clarify my feelings, and I would encourage you to do the same. What about ways to enhance your self-management? Well, I think one of the important concepts of emotional intelligence is emotional flooding, and to be aware of when you are becoming flooded. And what this means is often we're in control of ourselves rationally. Our rational mind, that part of ourself, is very strong. But maybe we get into a situation where we're feeling challenged. We get triggered, and often it's by another person. A very common example of this is road rage. You know, we're driving along the road, we're listening to our favorite music, somebody cuts us off, and we're triggered. Our emotional mind takes over, and we're ready for revenge. We're ready to swear at the person, give them the finger, do something that is going to get us in trouble. And we figure out, wait a minute, hopefully our rational mind will take back over. But these kind of triggers are very important to recognize. What's your trigger? When you get emotionally upset, what is it that does it? Very often it ties into the next idea, which is faulty thinking. We get emotionally triggered because we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves and others. For example, many of us carry a irrational idea, I should say, which is we have to be loved and approved of by everybody for everything we do. And we can't stand being criticized. If we are criticized or even perceive that we're being criticized, we get upset and maybe we counterattack or criticize others. So this is an idea of what faulty thinking is. Another one is, I hate it when people make mistakes or I make mistakes. I can't stand it. And we use very strong language, and we can upset ourselves by giving ourselves this kind of garbage in, and then garbage comes out, which is emotional outbursts. Another thing that I think is a key lesson here is don't counterattack. Often we perceive that we're being attacked by someone else, and we think the best way is to get back at them. And really the best way is to understand where they're coming from if we could keep ourselves emotionally in control. And the last one is practicing delaying gratification. If we could put off in things that are going to give us immediate pleasure to wait until we have greater pleasure, that's a great thing. And most of us who have graduated from college have had to do that many times, and we continue to do that to be successful in our lives. So what about ways to enhance empathy? I mentioned earlier active listening. I think this is very important. Not debating, not defending people, not counterattacking, but asking questions. And I think that the old adage, I think it comes from St. Francis, of seek first to understand, then to be understood, is a very, very important piece of this, because if we try to understand the other person rather than trying to get them to understand us, we are going to get a very kind of a deep bond with people and be able to empathize them, and they will appreciate us because we're taking the time to get to know them rather than trying to get them to know us. Another couple of ways to manage relationships. One of the key things I think is it's not always about you. I think we tend to be very egocentric, self-centered folks. All of us are thinking about our own gratification, our own pleasure. And we walk into a relationship and we're always thinking about what's in it for me, what can I get out of it. Emotional intelligence says, realize it's not about you. It's about other people as well. And they're having the same concerns. They're self-cautious, they're self-worried. And so if you could take your time to get to know them and not worry about yourself, you're going to be much farther ahead. So another aspect of learning to manage relationships is to recognize that we all have very strong individual differences. And if you try to fit everybody into the same category, into the same boat, it's not going to work. So how do you understand personality differences? Well, one of the bases, I think, is there's two factors to look at. One is the scale of what I would call introversion, extroversion, and the other is the scale of what I'd call rigidity, flexibility. So when you meet a person or you try to understand yourself, try to understand to what extent am I an introverted person, that I like to spend time more by myself, I need my quiet time, I'm not all that comfortable in social situations, or am I an extroverted person? I like to be in crowds, I like to do my work in a coffee shop, I love to meet new people. And these are very strong individual differences which probably are wired in at an early age. So they're not really easy to change. So when you meet people, try to gauge, are these people introverted or extroverted? And maybe draw your conversation and the development of the relationship along that dimension. Another one is to think about, is this person more on the organized, rigid side, likes to do things routinely, or is the person more on the flexible, innovative side where they always are liking to do new things? And if you think about it, when you meet people, some people are very organized, they have the same routines, they like to do things in the same way. You meet other people and they have no routines in their life and they are always trying to find some new ways, better ways, different ways to do things. And if you think about people on those two dimensions, introversion, extroversion, rigidity, flexibility, you'll be able to gain a great deal of understanding. And how do you find that out? You have to talk to people about their experience, their habits. And I always find it's good to talk to people about their upbringing to get a sense of how they were raised. So that's the 10 best ideas I could think of to help on emotional intelligence in terms of developing your own, developing it in your children, using it in the workplace. There's many, many more ideas, but we've covered today the 4 key competencies of emotional intelligence. The first basis, again, understand yourself. The second is manage your emotions. The third is have empathy for other people. And the last is learn to manage relationships. And if you can master those 4, apply some of these practices, I think you'll find your life will be improved and that you'll get a better capacity to get along with other people. So I hope this has been helpful, and thank you for the opportunity to share my ideas with other U of M alum.